Armen and Levack, 104.5 The Team, 104.5theteam.com. Ohm Youngmisuk of ESPN-NY covers both the Knicks and the Nets. And Ohm, tonight, the rivalry question mark begins once again, Knicks-Nets. Why, you wrote today, why isn't there that sizzle behind the rivalry this year like there has been in the past?
Paul Pierce is gone. Paul Pierce is a guy who, really pumped a lot of life into the rivalry. I mean, I'm sure Knicks fans will say there was never any rivalry to begin with, but Nets fans will look at it as rivalry. And look, I think there were times when there is a rivalry here between the Knicks and Nets. I'm not talking about who owns the city. The Knicks are probably always going to own the city just because of the history of the franchise, the amount of fans, things like that. But I do think there's a rivalry between the two teams. And so when Paul Pierce arrived, he had basically started talking trash about time for the Nets to run this town, and then J.R. Smith took exception to that. You had Jason Kidd, that dynamic with Kidd going from the Knicks to the Nets, and of course when Kidd was a Net, he ruled over the Knicks. So it was, and you had the two owners basically battling each other, and now a lot of that is gone. The owners are still there, but they're not. The franchises are cooperating together to basically both be co-hosts of All-Star Weekend coming up in February, and Pierce is gone, Kidd is gone. There's just no sizzle. Both teams are more worried about their own concerns, like the Knicks are worried about the triangle, and they've got a whole new regime in place there, and the Nets have a new coach and a new coaching system, and they're worried about their own health. So tonight I think it'll be a little interesting from the fan perspective. The Knicks fans always kind of like take over, wherever the Nets play, and you can hear them. They're pretty loud, but as far as on the court is concerned, these two teams, there really isn't that animosity right now.
Ohm Youngmisuk of ESPN-NY with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team.
So in the, for the current people on the roster, what's the matchup to watch tonight and hope that the rivalry reignites?
Well, I mean, you always want to keep an eye on Brook Lopez for the Nets, see how he's doing health-wise. And then there's always the Kevin Garnett-Carmelo dynamic. They have a little history together there. But Kevin Garnett is older now, and he's not going to play a ton of minutes. May see some time on Carmelo. Deron Williams, obviously, you want to watch to see how he does, how he's going to do. But, of course, the Knicks are shorthanded at point guard. They have Shane Larkin there. So, I mean, really, I guess it's going to be Melo versus Deron Williams. Deron hasn't really been shooting the way that he normally shoots, so we're going to have to see if he breaks out of this a little shooting slump. But other than that, I would say keep an eye on Brook Lopez because you always want to see how he's doing health-wise. I think this is his third game back since breaking his foot last December.
Ohm Youngmisuk of ESPN-NY. Follow him on Twitter, Notorious Ohm, at Notorious Ohm. And Ohm, Knicks, Nets getting ready tonight. Now, if we fast forward to the end of this season, who do you think the better team will be, Knicks or the Nets?
I think they're going to be really, really close. With the Nets, everything depends on their health. If Deron Williams gets healthy and gets back to where he was pre-surgery, I'm talking about like his old all-star form, Brook Lopez, if he gets back to his old all-star form, then I think it's going to be the Nets. But I'm not quite sure if they're going to get back to that level by the end of the season. It might take them a year. And I think the Knicks, I think the Knicks are going to be in the playoff conversation in the Eastern Conference. I think both teams are going to be right in that area between like maybe 6 to 9. Maybe 5 to 9. They're going to be vying in that spot, I think. So I think they're going to be close. I think they're going to both approach in the maybe 40 to 45 win range, maybe a little bit more than that. So it all depends on their health. For the Knicks, it's going to be a process. It's going to take time to get used to that triangle, really get it down. They've won some games so far, and then they've lost some games where they didn't look too good. So I think it's going to be like that every night for a while. I think it's going to take a long time for these guys to really get used to it. Carmelo Anthony, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert. It's going to take them a while to get used to it. Then when they bring Jose Calderon back, that's going to help a little bit. But defensively, this team is not that good. So, and also in the interior, there's a lot of question marks for the Knicks. So I think both teams have a lot of question marks, but I think both teams can be in that 6 to 8 range as far as the Eastern Conference seedings go.
So, I'm not just being a crazy New York homer thinking that there's a chance both these teams sneak into the eastern side of the playoffs?
No, not at all. Not at all. I definitely think both teams have enough talent to make the playoffs in the East toward the bottom part of the East. If you're thinking like maybe 4th seed or higher, then I would say, yeah, you might be a little crazy. But again, a lot of things have to break right for both teams. I mean, like I said, Brooke and Darren have to stay healthy, and they have not been healthy for a while. So if they can stay healthy and they not only just stay healthy but also regain their old form, then that's probably will be better than the Knicks. But I do think it's going to take some time for that to happen.
Ohm Youngmisuk of ESPN New York covers both Nets and Knicks, does a great job of it at ESPNNewYork.com. Ohm, we saw J.R. Smith suspended this week for hitting Wizards Glenn Rice Jr. in the no-man land. J.R. Smith says that it's accidental. How long are the Knicks going to put up with this guy? What's the forecast of J.R. Smith this year in the Knicks uniform?
Well, I mean, if how long they have to put up with him is basically based on when they could trade him.
Okay.
And it's not easy to trade in this league, especially somebody like J.R. Smith with his contract and maybe his off-the-court antics. So I'm sure the Knicks are probably listening around to not just him, but most of the people on their roster, because Phil Jackson is definitely in the mode of basically rebuilding and looking to overhaul this roster outside of Carmelo Anthony. But trading J.R. Smith is not going to be easy. So if you can't trade him, then you're basically going to be with him for a while. So I don't know. If anything happens with J.R. Smith, maybe around the trading deadline. But I fully anticipate J.R. Smith is going to be a Knick the entire season.
Melo has struggled so far in the triangle. Is that just the adjustment to the triangle, or is this going to grow into real problems for the Knicks?
What do you mean by real problems?
Like, is he going to start just completely ignoring the offense and taking shots and being a ball hog?
No, I think he's going to really give the triangle a full effort as far as like trying to learn and everything. I think he has to. This is the system moving forward for years to come, as long as Derek Fisher does a decent job. So I think there are going to be nights when he probably wants to revert maybe back to his old habits. And habits, when I mean old habits that got him to where he is today. So that's a hard thing to do, to really like do something for your entire life and all of a sudden in one season try to kind of like change it a little bit. But I do think he's going to play within the system. Look, there are going to be nights, though, when, at the end of games, the ball is going to go right to Melo. It's going to be isolation. It's going to look like old offense, because that, even when the triangle of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, it would morph into that at the end of games sometimes. So, but I don't think you're going to see, Carmelo take shots with 5 seconds into the shot clock, real quick shots, things like that, and hoist up, 30 shots per game or anything like that. I do think he's going to play within the system.
Earlier this week, Bill Simmons said that it's not crazy to think that Kobe Bryant could get traded to the Knicks for J.R. Smith and Amari Stoudemire. Is that crazy to think that?
I don't know. I find it hard to see Kobe Bryant playing for anybody else but the Lakers, unless it's from his own volition, unless he picks a team as a free agent. But look, when a team like the Lakers is struggling like that, and it just continues at this rate for the Lakers, then I guess you couldn't count anything out, and that's why I said by the All-Star break, usually when by the All-Star break, when the trading deadline's around there, that's when teams really start to make moves. And I think a contract like Amari's contract is going to be somewhat appealing for a lot of teams because it's coming off the cap. I think the Knicks should hold on to Amari Stoudemire's contract, because then I think they can have a clean slate during the summertime and then really go after some guys. Adding Kobe Bryant right now, I mean, if you were built to win a championship and you were missing one piece, then I would say okay. But I think the Knicks need so much more than Kobe Bryant at the age of where he's at right now.
How have the Nets been adjusting to the new leadership with Kidd just kind of vanishing in the dead of night?
It's too early to say. I think they're responding to Lionel Hollins. It may not have looked like that in Boston that first night, but I do think they respect Lionel Hollins. But it's really too early to say. We're only into the season, four games or 4 or 5 games. So let's revisit that question maybe come even January. But even like last year, I think after December, the Nets were 10-21 with Jason Kidd, and then they turned things around. So, we're just going to have to see how this team really meshes, because they have a lot to incorporate back in. They're incorporating Brooke back in, and they've got some new pieces there, younger guys to develop. So it's too early to answer that question right now.
All right, but can you answer this one for me? When will we get to see the Jason Kidd, Mikhail Prokhorov one-on-one? Is it pay-per-view? I got to see this thing.
I don't think you're ever going to see that. But, I will say November 19th should be interesting. But, I don't think Prokhorov will be in the building. But Prokhorov's not even in the United States long enough to have some sort of one-on-one game. I know he was here this week, but, I do think November 19th is going to be really interesting. I was asked this question today by a friend. What game do you think Nets fans want to win more, tonight against the Knicks or November 19th against Jason Kidd? And my answer was Kidd, actually.
Yeah.
I think Nets fans probably care more about that.
Woo! Ohm Youngmisuk of ESPN New York. Follow him on Twitter at Notorious OHM. Ohm, thanks for your time, man. As always, looking forward to checking in with you more later on in the season, baby.
All right, thanks, guys.